All right, so first question, where were you born?
I was born Ramey Air Force Base, Puerto Rico.
And who were your parents and what were their occupations?
Okay, my dad was Donald Hiram Sowers, and he was a career Air Force man. And my mother, she didn't start working till I was about 16 years old, and she was a secretary and interpreter for the welfare department up in San Jose, California.
Who were your siblings, their names and genders, and if any served in the military?
Okay, I have one sister. Her name is Lorraine, and she never served in the military. Her husband did, and he was an officer in the Army.
What were your parents or siblings' feelings about you joining the service?
I think my sister was glad to get rid of me. My mom and dad, my dad being a career serviceman himself and fighting in World War II, he was proud of me, I guess, but nervous, as a parent would be. My mother was dead set against it. She was about ready to have a nervous breakdown, but I think my dad was strong enough for the both of them, so he kind of helped her through it while I was gone.
What primary and secondary schools or college did you attend?
Well, I went to high school in San Jose, California. It was Lee High School, and graduated in 1967. And then I went to West Valley Junior College up in San Jose. And then I got my bachelor's degree from Pepperdine with the help of the Marine Corps.
Did you hold any jobs before entering the service?
Yes, I did. I worked as a bag boy in a grocery store and as a bus boy and dishwasher in restaurants.
Can you tell us about when you went into the military? Were you drafted or did you enlist?
No, I enlisted in August of 1967. A month after graduating from high school.
And in which branch did you enter?
Marine Corps.
What is your most vivid memory of your time training or in school? And what was the best part?
While I was in the service, what was my most vivid memory?
It says of your time training or in school. So it could be...
I guess my most vivid memory would be when I served in Vietnam in the military. It was, I think somebody coined the phrase moments of boredom, or hours and hours of sheer boredom punctuated by moments of sheer terror. So there was some exciting moments and some very boring times as well.
And what was the best part of that vivid memory?
The best part of my time in the service was the friends I made, the camaraderie, the togetherness. You build a bond with someone that you rely upon, not very much like police officers and stuff. They learn to rely upon each other and their partners, and it's the same way in the military. You learn to rely upon each other because your lives depend on it.
And what was the worst?
I guess the worst was when you see your friends get hurt, get injured, get wounded. That's you take the good with the bad. But fortunately for me, I didn't have any close friends that died over there, but I did have some that were injured pretty badly. So.
Did you receive any specialized training?
Yes, when I got through with boot camp, I thought I was getting ready to ship out to go to Vietnam, and all of a sudden they stamped my orders with DLIWC, and I go, DILWIC, what is that? I know what the 1st Marine Division is, I know what the 3rd Marine Division is, and so somebody told me that was Defense Language Institute West Coast in Monterey. So I was going to spend a couple months in Monterey, California, learning how to speak Vietnamese.
And what would you say was the hardest part of training?
Probably the running. They ran you. Every place you went, you ran. So that was the most difficult.
What was the hardest part of military lifestyle for you to adapt to?
Probably not being able to come and go as you please during the training phase. It got a little better once I got out of training and was able to be my own boss to a point. But I guess somewhat the discipline and the strictness were difficult, but being raised by a military father, it wasn't that hard. But I guess of all the things I had to pick, that would be the hardest.
And what would you say is the easiest part of the military lifestyle?
Just, if you do your job, it was easy. So just doing my job was the easiest part, I guess.
And where did you serve?
Well, I served in Camp Pendleton. I served in Okinawa. I served in Quantico, Virginia. I served in Vietnam. And then I visited Singapore, Hong Kong, Kuala Lumpur. So it was pretty much all over the Far East. Never got to Europe, though.
What were your recollections of that experience?
Fun, excitement, getting to meet new people, different cultures, finding out that human beings all over the world are pretty much the same. If you're nice to them, they're nice to you.
Did you ever have a combat role, or were you ever in combat?
Yes, I served in combat with the 3rd Battalion, 27th Marines. I was with Mike Company. I was a rifleman, automatic rifleman. And then I got transferred to 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines, and I was a fire team leader. And then I was with Mike Company, 3-1, and just before I came home, about 3 months before I came home, I was a squad leader. And I was an infantryman, so yeah, there was combat. Fortunately for me, we were stationed around Da Nang, and combat facing your enemy wasn't all that, it didn't happen all that often. Most of the NVA fighters were up north along the DMZ. We had to contend with booby traps and such, and the VC, which were farmers that fought, so they weren't quite as, they were tenacious, but they weren't really as good a soldier as the North Vietnamese Army. Their soldiers were good.
And how did your combat experience change you?
My wife keeps telling me that I'm fortunate. She sees the movies about guys with PTSD coming back from war today, and some of the guys came back during Vietnam, but I guess I was lucky, or I'm harder than what I think I am, I guess, but for the first couple of months home, I had some nightmares, I had some bad dreams, but after a couple of years, I was fortunate. I came out of it pretty much unscathed, so I was pretty lucky.
How did you stay in touch with family and friends?
The old-fashioned way, with letters. And then the funny thing was the old Mars phone calls. Every couple of months we get a 3-day in-country R&R. We get to go to China Beach in Da Nang. And as soon as you get there, you get off the trucks and run down and sign up to make a phone call. And so we'd sign up at the Freedom Hill PX, and then we'd keep our appointment, get down there. And the way it would work, you got 3 minutes to talk. That was it. But they'd send it, and it would go through ham operators, and they'd pick it up all the way across the Pacific until it got to California. And then if you lived in California, it was fine. Then it'd be a direct line. But if some of the guys who lived in New York, then ham operators would pick it up and transfer the call all the way to New York if you had to. But it's a very long, drawn-out process. But it's all we knew at the time. So it beat a letter. At least 2 or 3 times I got to talk to my mom and dad and my sister. So.
And do you recall any humorous or unusual events?
While in combat, the one humorous event that I recall was I was pretty new. I'd only been over there about 2 months. And there was a gentleman that was my superior. I was a PFC, and he was a corporal. So we were out on a listening post, which is an evening post way out from where your buddies are. And we got shot at. And so I stood up and started to shoot back. And he grabbed me, pulled me over backwards. Here we are in the middle of a firefight, and he's punching me out, telling me, "Don't give away our position, you stupid idiot." And he used more colorful language than that. And I said, okay, okay. So then we started shooting back at everybody. But I look back on that now, and to me, that's funny now. At the time, it wasn't funny, but looking back on it, it is. You learn as you go through life. So that was a learning experience.
How did your military service experiences affect your life?
I think it made me more disciplined. It surely helped me to control my temper. I had a real bad temper growing up. My dad always told me that my temper in my mouth would be the death of me. So being in boot camp, my first 9 days, I had 2 black eyes. The first one was because I said you to the drill instructor. You're supposed to say, sir, the private requests permission to speak to the drill instructor. I said, sir, I want to speak to you. And he said, you, do I look like a female sheep? And he punched me in one eye. And then that was just healing. And then I said, I, instead of the private. And he said, I'll show you what an eye is. And he punched me in the other eye. So it taught me how to pay attention to what you're doing and to be disciplined and to follow orders. So that's helped me throughout my life, I think.
And how has your military service impacted your feelings about war and in the military in general?
I feel like a lot of soldiers and Marines and sailors and airmen do, that our role while we were in the service was to be strong enough to avoid war, because, to be honest, war sucks. Too many young people die in war. They don't take the infirm, they don't take the old, they take the young studs, and those are the ones that end up paying the price. So if we can avoid it, we need to avoid it. But if we can avoid it, then we need to be ready for that too.
And what message would you like to leave for future generations that will be watching this interview?
Be strong. Think of America first. I can't impress upon people enough that, sometimes I sit around and I think to myself, where would I live if I couldn't live here? And I think of things like Australia wouldn't be bad, Canada wouldn't be bad. But all things considered, even with the turmoil we're having today in Washington, D.C., America is the best place in the world to live. It's the best country we can be in, and we just have to participate, be your own person, fight for what you believe in, but also listen to other people, listen to what they've got to say. Don't shut them out, because everybody's got something to say, and you can learn a little bit from everybody that you come in contact with, whether it be in this country, whether it be in another country. Everybody's got something to give to somebody else.
Do you recall the day that the service ended?
When my service ended? Yeah, it ended in August of 1978. I was an enlisted man for almost 6 years in the reserves and active duty. And then when I went back on active duty, I went to OCS in Quantico and got my commission as a second lieutenant Marine Corps. And then in August, it was the hardest thing I had to do. I had just made captain about a month and a half before, and I went ahead and resigned my commission, because then I had a wife, I had 2 kids, and looking to travel and be gone 3 out of the next 5 years while my kids were growing up just didn't work. My daughter was about 5 months old, so I would have missed the first 3 years of her growing up, her first words, her walking. And I said, no, I've got a commitment I've got to make to my family. So after 12 years, I resigned my commission. It was difficult. I even cried. But, I look back on it, and it was a great part of my life, but it wasn't all that there was to my life. So.
Did you end up joining a veteran organization?
No, I really didn't. I joined, I'm a member of Lions, and but veterans organizations I never really jumped into, and it's because they all look like old guys, and so I never really joined, and now I'm in Lions, and we are all old guys. We've got to get some of you young studs in there. So think about it if you want to join a service organization. Lions or Rotary, any of those are good ones to join.
How did you get to your initial point of entry?
We flew Pacific Southwest Airlines, which no longer exists, from the San Jose airport to San Diego. And then we ran out, the drill instructor yelling at us all the way to get on the yellow footprints. The bus drove up to the airport, picked us up, and took us to MCRD San Diego, California. Remember that vividly. I was scared to death. It was dark. I remember like it was yesterday.
Did you qualify with equipment such as vehicles, aircraft, and radios?
No, they taught us how to work the radio, set the frequencies, but I was an infantryman, so what I qualified with was a rifle. At first it was the M14, then it was the M16.
What was the training like with rifles?
Intense. 2 weeks well, actually 3 weeks. And you had dry fire, you practice, you clean, you do all the things, and then you have your actual firing on the range. So we fired from, I believe, if I remember, I was a 200, the 300, and the 500 yards. And firing from 500, and you're looking, you can barely see the target. So we didn't have scopes, so we were shooting. And that was with the M14. Then when I got to Vietnam, they gave us the M16. That was a little bit different weapon.
Did you receive any promotions while in service?
Yeah, I was PFC out of boot camp because I was a squad leader, Lance Corporal after language school, picked up corporal and sergeant overseas in Vietnam, and then when I went to OCS, I got commissioned as a second lieutenant when I completed Officer Candidate School. And then from there to first lieutenant, and then 3 years later, captain.
Who did you leave behind when you left to serve?
My mom, my dad, my sister.
Let's see. Oh yeah, how were you received by your family and your community?
When I came home,
Yes.
we landed at El Toro when coming home. When we left Da Nang, it was, I remember it, June 13th, Friday the 13th, 1969, left Vietnam, and landed in first stop was in Okinawa. Then from there we flew on into El Toro down south in Santa Ana. And then they put us on buses, and we got our tickets to fly home wherever we were going. I was going up to San Jose. Flew us to the airport. We got off. We had our uniforms on, and we were spit at and yelled at and called baby killers by the hippies at the time. And we were told, don't do anything, just keep your mouth shut, your eyes closed, and we just walk straight, because you don't want to spend your 10 days of leave in jail. So we kept our mouths shut. Then when I got home, I came down the ramp, got off the airplane, walked into the air terminal, and my old man came up and gave me a great big hug. My mom gave me a hug. My sister gave me a hug. Then there was 3 or 4 people out there that, thank you, and you know, were nice. But L.A. was bad. It was terrible at the airport.
How did you readjust to civilian life?
Like I said earlier, it wasn't that difficult. I got a job about 2 weeks after I got home. I came home on 10 days leave, and then I had to go back because I still had some time to do. So I had 3 months left to serve. And so I was down south. When I finished, I came back up, enrolled in college, got a job, and just kept on going until I got through with junior college. Then went back in the Marine Corps on active duty and applied for OCS and was accepted.
Did the GI Bill support your education?
Yes. Yeah, both out of service. When I got out, went in the reserves, they paid for my junior college time. Then I went back on active duty, and when I was stationed at Camp Pendleton, the Marine Corps told me I needed a 4-year degree if I wanted a regular commission. So I said, whoops, okay. So I looked around and found Pepperdine had some good programs, and my GI Bill covered, I couldn't have paid for it myself, my GI Bill covered the education for Pepperdine. So I went for 18 more months and got my bachelor's degree, and then they transferred me up to Concord Naval Weapons Station, and that's where I ended my career.
Did you continue any friendships after your service?
There was a couple that I kept in touch. One guy, Richard Vendetti, he was from Massachusetts, Dedham, Massachusetts, and we communicated, oh gosh, must have been 20 years after I got out. But then kind of lost touch with each other after that. He moved around a lot, and so I haven't tried to look him up on Facebook a couple of times, but couldn't find him. So.
Did you attend any reunions?
Military reunions? No.
What kinds of friendships and camaraderie did you form while serving, and with whom?
Oh my gosh. The guys I was the closest with, naturally, were the guys in my fire team. That's a 4-man group that you're covering each other's backsides. And then it goes out from there, from the fire team to the squad to the platoon to the company. But I didn't really make real close friends. Richard Vendetti was a friend from boot camp. Art Costello was another one I kept in contact with. And he was close. He lives down in Southern California. But it was just hard to make close friends because you didn't know who might get gone the next day. So I refrained from that, but I had a couple of guys outside of my unit that I was friends with, Richard and Art. They weren't in my unit, but we went to boot camp together, and we formed a friendship in boot camp.
What did you do for recreation while you were off duty?
Some of the stuff I can tell you. We used to go out and hit the bars, chase the ladies. Pretty much that was about it, and then you live from one day to the next.
Was there something that you did in particular for good luck?
There was gosh, it's funny you brought that up, and I remember it. I had an M16 bullet. They're about that big, and I wrote my name on it with fingernail polish, Don, and I put it in my flak jacket and buttoned it and said, okay, this is the only bullet in Vietnam with my name on it. So I guess, and then I have this, my mother gave me when I left, this is 50 years ago, St. Christopher, even though I'm not Catholic, but my mother was. So she gave me the St. Christopher medal, and I've had it and worn it ever since. Didn't think I was superstitious till I thought I lost it when the chain broke, and I panicked. And I said, oh my, where is it? So I guess we all have a little bit of superstition in us, but it got me through Vietnam, and the bullet got me through, so those were the quirks that I had, I guess, or the superstitions I had.
Let's see. Where were you whenever you returned home?
I was in San Jose, California.
Let's see. How did the service affect the way you relate to others?
I think the military gave me, I used to be to the point of people in school, when I was going to high school, they thought I was stuck up and conceited because I wouldn't talk to a lot of people. I had some friends in high school, and we'd hang out. But I was shy is what it was. And so I think the military helped me, especially when I made sergeant in the Marine Corps. You're supposed to be bad, right? Hard and yell at people. And well, it just gave me a feeling of self-confidence. And then when I went to OCS, it was even higher, my confidence. So I think the military in that regard helped me to build my self-confidence and be more open with people, not be afraid to go up and say, hi, I'm Don, who are you? And, just be more open.
What do you wish more people knew about veterans?
What do I wish more people knew?
Yeah.
That today, I'm very proud of the way a lot of people look at veterans. I mean, they welcome them. I've had people, had one gentleman the other day, Saturday, I was over in Home Depot, and on my car I have the Marine Corps sticker, and I have a license plate that says Marine Corps, and I'm walking out, and the guy says, thank you for your service. Made me feel good, and I said, well, thank you. But back when I got out, you didn't wear your uniform when you went on leave because people might throw things at you or throw rocks or spit at you. But people need to understand that our veterans are people. They've got hopes, they've got dreams, they've got loves, and they've got hates just like everybody else. Just because we were in the military doesn't make us animals or make us people that you have to fear. There's just as many crazy people in the civilized civilian world as there are in the military. It's a product of society, not just a product of being a serviceman. So just treat your veterans like people, because that's what they are.
So nowadays, do you still get a lot of people telling you thank you for your service?
Yes.
And is there anything else that you would like to add on that we haven't necessarily asked?
No, when they went to an all-volunteer force, I was concerned because how are you going to have enough people? But I think the young people of today have stepped up. They say a lot of people today, generation, what is it, X now, the millennials, they don't know about responsibility. They don't know how to do this. They're not going to do that. But you take a look at our service and take a look at what the guys are doing. Respect them. Give the devil his due. And I'm just proud of the young people today because they are stepping up and taking a stand. Whether they're right wing, left wing, centrist, whatever they are, I'm proud of them as long as they have something that they can believe in besides themselves.
And what were you most concerned or afraid of whenever you first going to service?
failing because of my father. I was going to graduate from Marine Corps boot camp come heck or high water. So, but to be a failure was my biggest fear.
And while in boot camp, let's see, like how did you develop friendships there?
Well, it's real hard not to, because you're in a squad of 13, and I was a squad leader, so I had 12 guys that I was responsible for. And if one of them messed up, I'd take the heat because I'm supposed to make sure they do everything right, that their uniforms look good and all of that stuff. So I wouldn't say that we were friends, but the other three squad leaders and I were friends, and because we all faced the same problems if our guys didn't do their job. And the drill instructors picked on us. If the unit messed up, all four of us were in deep kimchi, extra running, extra physical fitness, extra push-ups, all of that good stuff. So we developed a friendship and a camaraderie. One was Art Costello that I mentioned earlier. We developed a friendship based on adversity, and we needed each other sometimes to cry on each other's shoulder and say, man, this is bad, this is terrible, because it gets rather intense. But that's how those friendships developed. They developed out of a need to share how you're feeling, because that's important. You got to have somebody to share something with, whether it's your mom, your dad, your brothers, your sisters, or your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whatever. You got to have somebody you can share things with, so you're driven to people that way.
And the training that you received while you were in boot camp, did you think it was enough for actually going into service and fighting in combat?
Well, you have boot camp, which when I went through, they had just reduced it from 13 weeks to 10 weeks because they needed, or 8 weeks. So they cut 5 weeks off because they needed people. Marine Corps now, today, is around 160,000 men. Back in 1965, it was about 186,000. 1967, 68, it was up to 500,000. And so they needed people, and they needed them out in the field, so they were cutting it. You go from boot camp, which is 8 weeks, then you go to, what was it? I went from August of 67 to September of 67, I was in boot camp. And then from October through December of 67, I was in basic infantry training school, and then the infantry training school. So if you're going to be an infantryman, then you go to 3 months of that training. Then after that was over, normally you go to 10 more days of training, and then you go to Vietnam. But I went to language school instead, so I had an extra 3 months. And then when I got done with language school, then they sent me to that 10 days of training and sent me overseas. The only thing I felt that they didn't train us well on was, I said we had M14s when I was in boot camp. And then when I get to Vietnam, they give us M16s. So all of our training and all the movies you see about Marines taking apart their rifles, knowing how to do it in their sleep and all that, we did. We knew how to put them together blindfolded. But then they give me a brand new rifle that I hadn't really trained with. And so I had to learn that all over again. So that's the only training I don't think they prepared me for enough. But everything else, they did the best job they could. The best teacher is experience. And you learn, keep your head down, don't stand up and shoot back and give away your position. Otherwise you find out the hard way that you messed up. So.
And as a final question, what do you think is like the most important takeaway that you received from the military that you can, as like a general piece of advice, or someone else that's interested in the military? Well,
as I mentioned earlier, it gave me a feeling of pride in something greater than myself, which was the Marine Corps. I love the Marine Corps. It gave me a feeling of self-confidence in myself, and a confidence in being able to trust other people and looking for the good in people, because you have to look for the good. You have to realize that those people are going to cover you. When you get up to run and go change a position, that guy's going to be paying attention to what he's doing and making sure he's got your backside covered. So my biggest takeaways are a love of something, the Marine Corps, and a feeling of confidence in others and myself.